Good evening. It's good to be back. I know that we are all praying for the rains everywhere in this country, because I think we are done with this searing heat. Everyone is praying for Makulayo, Makulayo, Makulayo. I'm Guthrie Mwenyuki. Tonight on the program, we have the spokesperson of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, Commissioner Paul Nyathi, to discuss the concerns around worsening violent crime in the country and other acts of crime. Commissioner Nyathi, welcome.
Thank you, Guthrie. Good evening, 3K TV viewers.
Commissioner Nyathi, recently the country applauded the police for the speed in which they moved in trying to bring to book the suspects in the murder of local businessman Joseph Mtangadura. And we saw 3 arrests. But last week, as you tried to make a 3rd arrest, which became an arrest, one of your police officers was slain by the suspect. And a lot of questions have been raised with regards to your very own safety as police officers and the safety of Zimbabweans. Have things come down to this?
Thank you very much, Guthrie. The Zimbabwe Republic Police firstly want to thank Zimbabweans for the cooperation, Guthrie, for the support in terms of fighting criminal acts in the country, particularly armed robbery cases, where you find that, yes, the Zimbabwe Republic Police has got a constitutional mandate to prevent, detect and investigate crime, to maintain law and order in the country, to safeguard lives and protect property. But the police cannot do it in isolation. The police cannot do it alone. That's why we've always called upon Zimbabweans to support the Zimbabwe Republic Police. And the peace can only exist where there is collaboration, where there is common understanding between the Zimbabweans and their police service. And we want to thank them after the said Mtangadura shootout, murder, which occurred on the 17th of August 2025, where the police has been working around the clock, not only about that case, but to make sure that anyone who commits armed robbery cases in the country, he has to face the full wrath of the law. He has to face justice at the end of the day. So it's said really, as we speak, that the Zimbabwe Republic Police has lost a young man who had a bright future in the Zimbabwe Republic Police. We had just served for 12 years. He has left behind a young family, 2 children, one aged 9 years old, the other aged 3 years old. It's quite disturbing that this suspect, Jabulani Mutasa, had the audacity to walk into a police station where another Zimbabwean was making a report. He then carelessly and in cold blood shot the policeman. And as if that was not enough, he went on to rob the complainant of $5 and then went away. After a brazen shootout with the CID or homicide detectives who had gone to Sanyati to track him and effect an arrest. So this is something which we want to commend Zimbabweans, because remember, with people in Pechwe, in Chakari, in Sanyari and Karoma, who then mobilized and then tracked the suspect, leading to his arrest. Of course, he was severely assaulted by members of the public. So this is the situation in which we are now, Guthrie. But as we speak, I want to assure Zimbabweans, the Zimbabwe Republic Police is on top of the situation.
Sure. So many questions arise when you continue to see these frightening acts, particularly incidents that involve, shooting at the law enforcement agents and also storming into the police stations. Does this incident call you into action to make sure that you've got to also step up your own security? Whether it means they are going to put body scanners, you are going to allow, your teams to search people who come into the police stations. Will that be happening going forward?
Certainly, Guthrie. I want to make it clear to Zimbabweans that going forward, we will have to step up security. Actually, the security at his police department has been stepped up. What it entails is anyone who visits police establishment has to be screened, has to go through security checks to make sure that genuine people wants to make reports at police stations, they are not turned away, they are given the opportunity to make their reports. But we are now aware that we also have criminals who will also take advantage. Some of them just trying to settle scores, some of them just trying to even take advantage of the Zimbabwe Republic Police. One thing which you want to make clear to Zimbabweans, Catherine, no one will be killed for cooperating with the police. If you commit a crime, please cooperate. Allow the police to do its work. Be a Zimbabwean who is a law-abiding citizen. Be a Zimbabwean who repents after committing a crime. But the moment you see someone becoming confrontational, then that person deserves to be dealt with the full wrath of the law. And I reiterate, with the full wrath of the law, particularly people who think that they are above the law, yet they are killing innocent Zimbabweans, yet they are attacking police officers as they perform their duties.
Sure. Commissioner Nyathi, in South Africa, I'm being told that I've got to let you take a deep breath. We'll come back and we'll reconnect. Join us in the second segment as we continue this week's program, where we are in discussion with the national spokesperson of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, Commissioner Paul Nyathi. Welcome back. This week, as we said earlier, we are with ZRP National Spokesperson, Commissioner Paul Nyathi, discussing the worsening crime, violent crime in the country, particularly armed robberies. Commissioner Nyathi, before we went for the break, I wanted to draw attention to the issue of violent crime in South Africa, where daring armed robbers, they have now been almost neutralized by the South African police services after a longer period of targeting the cash in transit vehicles. Those heists and those hastes have also come down to reasonable levels. Is this something that you may want to pursue? Use same tactics when you're dealing with these armed robbers?
Remember, Guthrie, we are part of the International Police Organization, Interpol. We are also part of the Regional Police Chiefs Organization, SAPCO, and we exchange notes. We collaborate in terms of fighting crime, which also includes cross-border crime. And we have said, as the Zimbabwe Republic Police, that the Zimbabwe Republic Police will respond appropriately to a scene of violent crime. In this case, when referring to armed robbery cases, we have said we will treat each case, treat each incident based on the prevailing situation. And what do I mean? Where criminals decide to be confrontational, where criminals decide to shoot at police officers, then they will also have themselves to blame. We will definitely without any form of hesitation, respond appropriately with a view of make sure that the law takes its course. So this is a clear message to anyone who think that they'll get away with committing a crime, who think that they'll get away with attacking police officers in whatever form or manner, Guthrie. So Zimbabweans should just be warned.
Sure. Last month, September, running almost to last week, you announced an amnesty on the illegal firearms. How have Zimbabweans responded, particularly at this critical juncture where we are talking about the proliferation of guns in our society and also the increasing number of crime involving guns?
Guthrie, what you are saying is something which is very important for the safety and security of Zimbabweans, for the effective operations of businesses in the country. It's said that His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, extended an olive branch in the form of a firearms amnesty, which ran from the 24th of September 2025 to the 24th of October 2025. Just imagine, Guthrie, only 38 firearms, as we speak, as of today, were surrendered to the Zimbabwe Republic Police. These are firearms which were not regularized. These are firearms which were not licensed. Some of the firearms were left behind by late family members. So we will then have to respond appropriately. And what do I mean? We have upped the game where we are now going to make a follow-up with the people who are on the database to find out how they are keeping their firearms, whether the firearms are still, the registered firearm owners are still alive, and whether people who said they were in particular businesses when they obtained firearm licenses, they are still in such businesses, and where anyone will be found to be keeping a firearm at a place which was not authorized, not licensed for, definitely those firearms will be taken away. But all in all, we want Zimbabweans to report the issue of firearms, people who are in legal possession of firearms. And also remember, Guthrie, at this fora, we also make it clear that the Zimbabwe Republic Police was working closely with the other arms of the state, the judiciary, the Attorney General's office, to make sure that the current Firearms Act is reviewed, so that we tighten the loopholes which we now know that some of the firearms they are taken as toy guns, yet in actual fact they are firearms which can expend a bullet, and they are equally good or dangerous just as the real firearms. So these are the things which we also want the public to come on board and support the Zimbabwe Republic Police for the safety and security of the country, for the safety and security of Zimbabweans.
So, Commissioner Nyathi, when you say that you've stepped up the game, you are going to go into the databases and revisit some of the firearms owners or holders, does this mean that you also have to do spot checks, like what other agencies do in their respective line of duty? Making spot checks without any announcements?
Definitely, Guthrie. There is no way out. We need people to be in legal possession of firearms, and we need people to respect the sanctity of human life. We need people to make sure that in whatever they are doing, they secure firearms. And no one, I reiterate, no one is in possession of unlicensed firearms or illegal firearms, including those smuggled. So definitely we are coming, and they would call upon the public to cooperate.
In your view, or from the intelligence that we have, why is it that there is this seemingly apathy on the moratorium that had been actually announced by the president?
There could be various reasons, Guthrie. I think you've seen that there are people who smuggled firearms. Some of them, they are not willing to come forward. There are even criminals. For example, you've seen what happened in Sanyati. somebody was in possession of a firearm for a long period, and using this firearm to commit a series of armed robbery cases. So obviously those people would think that they are clever, but their days are numbered. Then you also have some families who have this notion that once a family member dies or passes on, they've got the right to inherit that firearm without following the due process of the law. So we also want to go on the ground and remind those people to say, no, this is not what the law says. And we also have got firearms which are legally licensed, which have fallen into wrong hands. And some of them could also be, a conduit for the commission of crime. So these are the issues which the police wants to address as we work together with the other arms of the state.
Sure. Please join us in the final segment as we bring to a close this week's program, where we have been in discussion with the national spokesperson of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, Commissioner Paul Nyathi. Welcome back. To those who've just joining us, we are at the tail end of this week's program, but there will always be something for you. And tonight on the program, we have been in discussion with the national spokesperson of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, Commissioner Paul Nyathi, discussing the rising crime, particularly one that involves violence, especially the robberies. Commissioner Nyathi, you spoke about what you intend to do with your colleagues in other departments, government departments, with regards to making sure that give more teeth to the current, to the Firearms Act, because the current one has got so many loopholes. But one would also want to even go back and say, apart from what we are doing there, there has been this long-standing question about why is it people that commit armed robberies, they tend to get bail. And when they are on bail, they go and commit many other acts of robberies. And when they go back to the courts, again they are given bail. How are you addressing this with the Prosecutor General's office, the Minister of Justice? Because I know that you've been actually working closely with the PG in terms of wanting to have mandatory sentences on certain crimes.
Gathering the issue of suspects, the issue of people who commit a crime and then are given bail. At the same time, they go on to abuse that bail system. They go on to abuse that opportunity and go back to their criminal ways. It has always been a challenge. That's why I find that currently there is a constant interaction, there is a constant engagement between the Zimbabwe Republic Police, the Prosecutor General's Office, the Attorney General's Office, and the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs to tighten the system so that the loopholes are addressed. Because it's clear that we've had a challenge of serial armed robbery suspects who, under the guise of the right to bail, under the guise of human rights, and under the guise of the presumption of innocence until one is proven guilty, who then go on to abuse the bail system, something which has instilled the fear of crime in the people of Zimbabwe. That's why we are saying we are working together with the judiciary to make sure that people who are using firearms, people who are committing armed robbery cases, they cannot continue, Guthrie, to be honest, to abuse the country's legal systems. They cannot continue to abuse the bail system, where some of them you will find that they will end up crisscrossing the country's borders, where you find that they team up with people who are here in Zimbabwe, they team with people who are in neighboring countries. They come here, commit an act of armed robbery, they share the proceeds, they go to these other countries, some remain here, and we continuously have problems of this scenario. It's something which is definitely going to come to an end. And I want to assure Zimbabweans the Commissioner General of Police, Commissioner General Stephen Mutamba, is working around the clock to make sure that anyone who is involved in armed robbery cases will not abuse the country's bail system.
You talk of human rights, reference human rights. If I am shot and my family grieves and that person is given bail, isn't it also a violation of my own rights? Because my rights have been violated. Why should we continue like this? But listen, all I'm trying to say to you is, when you commit aggravated crime, serious crimes like rape, they'll tell you you have to go and apply at the High Court. You murder, you go and apply at the High Court. Armed robberies, why is that we don't also do the same thing?
Guthrie, it's clear, something which has always been in place. That's why we're saying the system needs to be tightened. And I'm happy there is buy-in from all the relevant arms of justice in the country to say we can't continue to allow criminals, particularly those committing violent crimes, to get bail willy-nilly, at the same time go back to their criminal activities. So definitely there is understanding, there is engagement. And we also want human rights. We are happy. We have taken note of the statement by the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, but we also want other players in the human rights fraternity to also come on board and tell Zimbabweans that the moment you become a criminal, don't expect your full rights to be fully observed. Honestly, Guthrie, would you want somebody who has killed an innocent young policeman to continue claiming his or her rights? Would you want somebody who has killed Mutangadura to continue to be claiming his or her human rights? Would you want to remember that Waterfalls incident? Do you remember, Guthrie, where that woman was trying to prevent an armed robbery suspect from killing her grandmother? He said, you can kill me. She was killed. That young woman, and they died. But no one spoke about her except the Zimbabwe Republic Police. No one stood for her except the Zimbabwe Republic Police. That's why we also saying we also want to balance the tenets of human rights vis-a-vis criminal activities. We now want the human rights organizations to also come on board and condemn criminal acts and condemn the way some of these armed robbery cases are occurring. And in the process, it will make people realize that we can't continue to lose lives through criminal acts. We can't continue to have people abusing the country's bail system under the guise of human rights.
Sure. Lastly, Commissioner Nyathi, briefly before I let you go. This week on Tuesday, some opposition figures wanted to have a press conference where they wanted to express their strong reservations on the resolution number 1 by the ruling ZANU-PF party, which seeks to extend the office, the term of office, their president, by 2 more years to 2030. And a number of things happened. Some claimed we were blocked. Some claimed police are actually violating our rights. They are working in cows with the ruling party. I just want you to tell our viewers what needs to happen if there has to be a gathering, whether it is a political gathering, it is a social gathering. What needs to happen in terms of the law, the Maintenance of Peace Act?
Guthrie, I think some of our Zimbabweans need to realize that the moment you go out there and want to have a gathering which end up being a political gathering, you need police clearance. And the moment you go out there and intend to have a gathering which turns out to be a protest, then you need a police clearance. In fact, you need to notify the police in terms of MOPA for the purposes of security. Remember, we are also investigating, for example, the SAPES trust issue. We are investigating a case of malicious damage to property. And the police had to make sure that the forensic science move in, try to gather evidence as much as possible. And that's why the police had to say no one should interfere with the scene, to allow the necessary debris to be picked for testing, for examination by the Police Forensic Science Directorate. But all in all, we want to urge politicians in Zimbabwe. There is a difference between somebody who is doing a social gathering and somebody who is doing a political gathering. So we want them to understand that, and in the process, assist the police in the maintenance of law and order.
Thank you, Commissioner Nyathi. It's a pleasure always having you on this program.
Thank you, Kat.
The hits might not continue because clouds will be building very soon. So Makulaya could be on the way. We'll see you next week. Same station, same program, same presenter. Good night.